Britain is home to some of the world's most famous landmarks. Stonehenge, Big Ben, Edinburgh Castle, the Giant's Causeway, York's Shambles, Windsor Castle, the list goes on and on. But this country is also home to a wealth of captivating destinations that aren't quite as well known. In fact, there's a good chance that you haven't visited some of Britain's most intriguing hidden gems. So, in this video, we're going to take a look at 8 fascinating places in the United Kingdom that you've probably never visited. From secluded beaches to mind-bending streets, long-forgotten medieval ruins, captivating churches, beautiful countryside villages, and so much more. Number 1. Skaw Beach, Shetland. We begin with a destination in the very northern reaches of the UK. In fact, it's almost impossible to find yourself further north than on the secluded sands of Skaw Beach. It's located at the very top of the island of Unst, the northernmost inhabited of the windswept Shetland Islands, more than 600 miles north of London as the crow flies. But of course, if you visit Skaw Beach, where the rough waves of the North Sea lap up against a beach on which you'll rarely encounter another soul, you'll be visiting it by road. And just before the gate which takes you out to the beach itself, you'll pass by a sign that points out that this is the most northerly point of Britain's entire road and cycle network. Indeed, the continuous national cycle route number 1 runs for a staggering 1,695 miles along the east coast of Britain, all the way down from Skaw Beach to the port of Dover. A small sheep farm beside the beach is the only human presence in what is also Britain's most northerly settlement, currently home to just one person. And so the sheer remoteness of this spot, at the very top of the nation, is almost without parallel, and a place well worth visiting that you almost certainly haven't stopped by yet. Number 2. Cucklet Church, Eyam. The tiny rural village of Eyam, located in the heart of the gorgeous Derbyshire Dales, is often known simply as the Plague Village, after it famously sealed itself off from the outside world for more than a year, after a case of the bubonic plague was discovered there in 1665. During a 14-month-long quarantine, about 3/4 of the village's already small population died of the plague, with just 83 survivors. But things may have been even worse if it weren't for some ingenious solutions the villagers devised to keep those infected separated from others. One of the main concerns revolved around church services. Everybody packing inside St. Lawrence's Church in the village centre would only speed up the spread of the plague. So the local vicar decided to host a separate church service for those who'd been infected, inside a cave on the very edge of the village. And more than 350 years later, this cave can still be found today, a short walk from the village centre in a secluded valley where few people tread. Known as the Cucklet Church, the cave is almost like a naturally occurring church building, with a high arched roof and room inside for a handful of worshippers. And while it can be a little perilous to explore on your own, with sharp crags, slippery rocks covered with moss, and a sheer drop down to the valley floor just beside, it's an enthralling place to be, with its legacy as an emergency place of worship and solace for those who were at death's door, conjuring up a spectacular atmosphere. Number 3. Giggleswick, North Yorkshire. Yes, Britain is well known for its many unusual place names, but while the gorgeous Yorkshire village of Giggleswick may spark a chuckle or two, there's so much more to this destination just off the beaten track. Situated on the very southern edge of the magnificent Yorkshire Dales, the village of Giggleswick, home to around 1,000 people, boasts a wealth of riveting historic and natural landmarks. Most famously, it's the home of one of Yorkshire's most prestigious schools, established more than 500 years ago, with vast grounds just on the edge of a compact village centre. Among the tranquil streets of central Giggleswick, you'll find picture postcard views wherever you look, as you stroll alongside the trickling waters of the Thames, a small stream not to be confused with the much larger river in London. And you can also explore the enchanting yard of St Alkelda's Church, a place of worship which was mysteriously named after an Anglo-Saxon princess who lived some 1200 years ago. Beyond a couple of pubs, eating and drinking opportunities are rather scarce in central Giggleswick, but don't let that put you off, because it lies within walking distance of the much larger town of Shetland, located just a few minutes away on the other side of the River Ribble, the upper reaches of which flow between the two settlements, and the waters of which tumble over rocks and rapids as they descend all the way towards the Ribble estuary and the Irish Sea. Number 4. The Lord Nelson statue at Llanfairpwll. Well known all over the world for its 58-letter-long village name, Llanfairpwll is famous enough that you might have even visited it yourself. But there's a good chance that after taking a picture of the sign, you didn't venture out to the edge of the village. The Llanfair, at the beginning of the village's mammoth name, literally means St Mary's Church, which sits in a quiet churchyard about a 20-minute walk from the railway station, in an area historically known as the Upper Village, the older part of Llanfairpwll. This Victorian-era church is a rebuild of a much older place of worship, but if you keep walking through the churchyard towards a small wood, it'll lead you down towards the shores of the Menai Strait, the waterway which separates the island of Anglesey, on which this village is located, from the Welsh mainland. Yet in this tranquil waterside spot there stands a grand monument to none other than Vice Admiral Horatio Nelson, a man originally born in Norfolk and who's not often associated with Wales. In fact, the only reason he has a statue at this seemingly random spot is because it was an experiment by a local sculptor, who was testing out concrete as a building material for sculptures he'd have in his rather expansive garden. Nelson was a famous figure of the day, and so he became the subject of this test statue, which unintentionally has gone on to serve as a helpful navigational tool for sailors navigating the waters of the Menai Strait, a major landmark standing just beside the majestic Britannia Bridge, which connects Anglesey back to mainland Wales. Number 5. Vale Street, Bristol. In the suburban area of Totterdown, about a mile from the busy city centre of Bristol, you'll find Vale Street, the steepest street in all of England. A perilous stretch of tarmac draped on the side of a steep hill, Vale Street has an incline of 22 degrees, and so visiting it is much more than a stroll along your typical suburban road. The pictures here go some way to showcasing the street's drastic slope, but the truth is that nothing compares to tackling Vale Street in the flesh. Standing at the bottom of the road, it looks like an insurmountable Himalayan peak, and when you're at the top, you might even need to balance on a street lamp to stop yourself tumbling all the way down. Indeed, Vale Street is so steep that all its residents park their car at an angle against the incline, and during the winter, when the road can get icy, some even tie their cars to the street's lampposts to stop them sliding down to the bottom. On foot, walking up or down the street genuinely requires an extra level of concentration. On a bicycle, it's an almost impossible challenge going up, and terrifying when coming down. And even in a car, you need to make sure you've got a good handle on the brakes, because gravity won't hesitate in taking you all the way down. Number 6. The Village, Windsor Great Park. You've probably been to Windsor Castle, a favourite home of the British royal family and the oldest and largest inhabited castle in the entire world. And when you visited, you probably took a stroll along the Long Walk, a spectacular 2.5-mile long path that stretches from the castle gates into the Berkshire countryside. But did you make it all the way to the end? If you walk literally straight for 2.5 miles from Windsor Castle, you'll find an immense statue of King George III on horseback, one of the many captivating features of Windsor Great Park, once upon a time the personal hunting grounds of the monarch, but today one of the largest parks in the whole country. Exploring the whole park would take days. It's bursting with gorgeous natural scenery wherever you look. But close to its very centre there's actually a small village, which has no name other than The Village. Designed in the vein of a quaint countryside model village, it was built back in 1948 to provide housing for the people working on the Windsor estate, helping with the upkeep of the Great Park and other royal lands surrounding the castle. With a school, a village shop, a cricket club, a phone box and more, the village has all the trappings of a normal rural settlement. But with pristinely cut lawns and a number of royal monuments around its streets, including an eye-catching one of Queen Elizabeth II on horseback, it's easy to remember that you're just a stone's throw from one of the country's most important royal landmarks. Number 7. Cuween Chambered Cairn, Orkney. The windswept surroundings of Scotland's Northern Isles are arguably the best place in Britain to get up close and personal with beautifully preserved prehistoric settlements. Shetland boasts the stunning ancient settlement of Jarlshof and an array of majestic brochs dating back thousands of years. But further south in Orkney, you'll find perhaps the most impressive collection of prehistoric remains. Most famous is the preserved settlement at Skaw, an excavated village far older than Stonehenge and even the pyramids. But it's far from the only prehistoric marvel to be found in Orkney, with millennia-old stone circles dotted around the landscape, as well as a number of chambered cairns, mysterious structures to be found in seemingly the most unlikely of locations. From the mighty Maeshowe to the intriguing Unston, you'll find plenty of these prehistoric structures all over Orkney. But one which often slips under the radar is the spectacular Cuween Hill Chambered Cairn, a remote stone building constructed high up on a hill some 5,000 years ago. Excavated just over 100 years ago, the cairn was discovered to have been built by local farmers as a burial chamber all those millennia ago. And when archaeologists got inside, they found the remains of at least 8 people and a number of their dogs. But today, these 5,000-year-old bones have been safely removed, and if you don't mind getting down on your hands and knees, you can venture inside and discover what it's like to be inside one of the oldest buildings in all of Britain. Because it's up the top of a hill and is a bit of a faff to crawl inside, Cuween Hill is almost always calm and quiet, giving you the time to explore the cairn's dark interior at your own leisure, but also to admire the stunning landscape in which it stands, with majestic views of the sea and a number of other mysterious stone-built towers just a few steps away. Number 8. The 3 churches of Reepham, Norfolk. Churches, there are thought to be more than 40,000 of them to be found all across Britain, so a visit to a church is hardly the most unusual British day out. But if you find yourself in the heart of the North Norfolk countryside, then make sure to make a stop in Reepham, a charming town which plays host to not just 1, not even 2, but 3 separate churches within the same churchyard. It's the only place in the whole country to boast a trio of places of worship in the same spot, the medieval churches of St Michael's and St Mary's standing back to back, and the ruins of their erstwhile neighbour, All Saints, lying just a few feet away, thought to have been destroyed in a fire of 1543. Now, according to local legend, the reason behind this unusual layout was a quarrel between 3 sisters from a wealthy local family. Falling out with one another, it was agreed that each of them would be built their own separate church as a place of worship, and so the 3 churches of Reepham were born. In all truth, it's more likely that the churches were built here for people from the surrounding countryside who visited Reepham's market in centuries past. Now, if you visit today, then alongside the triple churches, there are plenty more unusual sights to discover here, from the charmingly named Pudding Pie Alley to Reepham's old railway station, one of 2 which once served the village, and which now hosts a restaurant, while the railway track is used as a footpath, leading all the way to Norwich. So there you have it, 8 fascinating British places that you've probably never visited. Underrated, riveting, and generally very serene, next time you're planning a day out, why not take a trip to one of these true hidden gems?